But I think we can begin. Hello and welcome. This is Who Cares with Denenge Duyst-Akpem and D. Denenge Duyst-Akpem. We are so happy and grateful to have them with us. In their own words, Denenge Duyst-Akpem has been an itinerant adjunct professor of visual art for the last 12 years and is Dr. Zoom. D. Denenge Duyst-Akpem is a space sculptor whose award-winning teaching, art, and writing have been commissioned worldwide, bridging disciplines of ritual, design, ecology, and Afrofuturity. She is Associate Professor Adjunct at School of the Art Institute of Chicago and founder of Denenge Design and In the Luscious Garden, focused on holistic and conceptual approaches to human-centered design. Her first monograph, Afrofuturi 0202-2020, and the Camo Coat Collection launched on February 2nd, 2020 at Blank Gallery in historic Bronzeville, Chicago. In this dialogue titled Who Cares?, Dana and Denenge will discuss student expectations of care on having entered what many interpret as a custodial relationship with the institution, from whom that care is expected and how it's delivered, putting voice and face to who cares in this relationship, which is in fact a contract, an affect economy underwritten by tuition, not pretending as love, but being most essentially work, which they do at their own and variable degrees of risk, and the demands placed acutely on Black women and folks in this academy these days and all days ever. Please join me in welcoming Dana and Denenge.
Thanks for coming, everybody.
Hey, Ben.
Hey, Denenge, I'm happy to see you. Thanks, Kayla.
Yeah.
I wrote a little preamble, and then is that okay if I read it out loud and then we'll speak to one another? Is that all right?
Do it. Do it.
The idea is it opens the door and then we talk. Kayla, thanks for being my emotional support person through all of this. I appreciate it. So I'm going to read a thing. Forgive me in advance or don't. This is volitional. Okay, this is, I guess, like addressed to students. I'm imagining this is a largely student audience. You're right. You're all right to identify a crisis. This can't hold. We can't do this. Everything you think is wrong is actually wrong. The academy is outrageous, unjust, insane, violent, punitive, restrictive, extortive, biased, phobic, and mean, yes. Everything is just as it was before, just now we all have to look at it. People now have cell phone cameras. State-sanctioned violence is just as it was before, just now we all have to believe it. That the image verifies over the speech of some subject is an academic problem, and like art, not apart from the world, which isn't flat. Our bodies held anxiously apart are no more fragile than before. Our interdependence now staked openly. Maybe we should have been gentler. Schools buzzwording community over a depleted enrollment, they're right. As an idea, community is much less risky to enact without the excitable charge of bodies in space. Our disembodied heads staring into the little green light, way more intimate than is safe and not what I signed up for. This privileging of speech and writing here in English over material and action and the quietness that learning to see together in the same space actually requires. This is the present of pedagogy. I don't have anything to say about the future. I'm good at looking at the wound, at helping it take form because it got there before I did. I miss feet. I sweat when I'm nervous. It's what we risk in being together, breathing all over each other, being susceptible. Learning is crisis, it opens a fissure in your order of things. People got sick and we were all told to leave school and you hoped we could all go back someday, but instead they broke your heart. You have to only let them do that once. Your teachers, we helped them break your heart. School is awful, but learning isn't. Genealogy isn't. Chosen families and elders and apprentices and trying to help isn't. Not sharing. Adrienne Rich wrote it and I thought it too with her help, that if this is where I must look for you, then this is where I'll find you. And this sick apparatus I came to in pure need 22 years ago after the cops and a hospital and some other stuff. An art school where materiality could dispute image and semiotics fall apart in the face of something like spit in the spirit of a deconstruction, which is always optimistic, a belief something else might be built out of these pieces if one person equals one person and we are not embarrassed to be material too, but first we must take it all apart and no one can do this safely alone. I never really left for the relief, I guess, because I was relieved. Everything that has helped me get along in this pandemic I learned in art school. The habituation to uncertainty, the imperative to use all senses, how to make a burrito last 2 days, how soft we are. Bullshit, maybe. It's not about my heart, maybe, you say. Fine, it's wherever your hope lives, your guts or bowels. It's about what you thought would happen, what we all thought would happen, having been driven by habit. It isn't going to be the same. You aren't going to get this back, not that monument either. There's no going back to the world before all this because we didn't leave it. Fact, your teachers will show up to teach whoever's there and sleep no worse than ever, though we are perhaps a little sadder because we miss you. The contemporary neoliberal university stands at the end of a long line of enormous violence. There's a reason we say affect instead of feeling or emotion. It's because it's a noun and also a transitive verb, and when it's a verb, you are its object. You have been affected by this. Affect is the medium of your education. An academic paper from 1983 asked, who does the flight attendant smile belong to? We as workers ask ourselves this all the time. Estrangement as an antidote to alienation, a tool of employment, easy to use if you can't help it, if you already care, if you are relieved that something will hold you even this uncomfortably. This is part of the price we pay and part of what you paid for. The better your teachers get at this, the worse it is for you. Maybe you should get out while you can. Here's why I don't. I'm angry. I love us as a species and hate the injustice of much of what we've built. The Western Museological Project, in alignment with colonialism and nationalism, has elected to hold gently the material traces of people after administering enormous violence to their actual bodies. This is our field. I work in an academy that upholds these structures and seeks to erase the violence done by exclusion to bodies in a weak burlesque of late phase inclusion of objects into their legitimating syntax after, in most cases, the artist is safely dead. It's a better story. It's dumb because I'm here for love, to serve something, and this is stupid because it's work. I let it break my heart all the time. We get paid for being lonely with this care, for depositing our tools on the table and letting people walk off with them, and then you become a vampire. There are questions about how to live that have never been assuaged by anything, kept alive year after year after year after year, made new. It's stupid. Given that I know better, that we knew better when we walked into a place that doesn't hold us right and stayed. Juendo writes of someone whom another had a hold of by the hair, and in order not to give out that appearance, pretends she is being caressed. We're all pretending because someone must carry what you need, and we don't all get to see the flowers in the gardens we're watering. The ones we get to see are probably too quick. What was it to have been a question, to open holes in your certainties, to believe that we can help each other in this way, and that being careful and precise and humble in the face of materials will help us not kill each other, and a heterotopia not pretending is love, but being essentially work. Here we are surprised to be affected. Who does this care belong to? Who has it? Who holds it, gives it to you? Who gives you back to you, this time in form? Who has the tools to help you take form? I'm at work and you're trying not to cry or fall asleep, and Denenge is saying the old poems out loud, and I'm belching the alphabet, and we make a space for you in a space that doesn't hold any of us right. I'm a vampire. Teaching is how I address the future. Judith Butler finally explained it, that vulnerability is resistance because it is a deliberate exposure to power, so you can see the effects of that power. Who cares is important. Who do you think will decolonize your canon? At what price? Black women have been doing this work in the academy forever. They told us about Octavia Butler, and they told us not to worry. This is care work and precarious labor in every sense. I wanted to talk about this with Denenge, an artist and a teacher of great courage, who I respect very much. Thanks for coming, Denenge.
Wow, Dana.
I need something to fight against, including myself. Thank you for coming.
Yeah. Thank you. It's an honor. And thank you, Kayla. This is really wonderful to be here. I appreciate it. And everybody, some faces, current faces, Katie, Sandrine, so many beautiful people. I see you all. It's wonderful to be, oh my God, Gina. I just want to sit here and have like a reunion because I love you all so much and I miss you. I think about you all the time, especially on Instagram. Sometimes I have moments of panic. I'm like, what happens if Instagram goes away? How will I find you all? Which is interesting, you know, to think about our links with social media as well, which for me is connected with all of this, you know, folks who've studied, you know, with me and Octavia Butler. We're reading Parable of the Sower this year and have, you know, building Go Packs and that kind of thing. And thinking about, I remember from, was it 2016? When the evil first was ushered in, November. And I remember I was teaching Afrofuturity and we just, you know, I couldn't even speak. It just came out as a sob and we just sat there and held hands and cried together and then started compiling lists of, you know, if everything we have is on our phones or, you know, what's your actual list? Do you have a spot where you meet with your people when the shit goes down? You know, like this is the spot at the corner of 65th and whatever, you know, and like, what are these analog systems that we're kind of looking at that we kind of need to go back to so that everything that is our connection and our community isn't based on digital. And I say this knowing that, you know, right now so much is based on that. but really having a sense of ourselves, you know, as, because I think in this Zoom world, you know, which has a positive association, because when I was growing up and we were living in the States, there was a show called Zoom. I don't know if anybody remembers that. We're gonna zoom, zoom, zoom. And it was like high energy kids, like doing kicks and all kinds of, you know, so when I hear Zoom, I think about that show and I feel like I'm back in it. But it's not that. It's not at all that. And so, you know, I'm just thinking about this sort of physicality of self, you know, which we all are, I think. And Mendy and Keith Obadike just did a piece last week called "The Sun." It's based on an Igbo proverb. And basically it's 45 minutes of meditation with images, layered images and video of sun and sunset. And it's too much for me to try to even explain, but I've been stretching with that in the morning with the sunrise and thinking about the physicality, you know, thinking about Barbara Ann Teer, National Black Theater, and her exercises for working Blackly and self-love as like foundation, you know, looking to Black church traditions, looking to voodoo, looking to all, you know, like there's this physicality that I think for me is really what I'm trying to find a way to hold on to, you know, very consciously for myself. And then how does that flow into Zoom world? And it's a kind of a constant, how do I say this? Like I'm reminding myself constantly that I exist, you know, that I'm here, that I'm present, and that the minutiae of my present is important. The tiny details of these moments of existence are important. I don't know, I have like 4 pages of notes off of Dana and all the others to say, but just, you want to jump in? I can keep going with some things.
I'm happy you're here. Say everything you need, or someone else.
Well, so here's some things. This is off of some of the notes from earlier and off of, you know, reciprocity. I'm just going to throw out a bunch of stuff. Reciprocity between students and faculty. A lot of us have been through the exact, especially if you're an alma mater, which I am of SAIC, we've been through the exact thing. And sadly, some of those things haven't changed in however many years since we were here. But to recognize that we get it, and that we're all kind of in this grappling together.
Yeah, I think that was sort of, no, sorry.
Oh no, it's recognizing that, you know, our time is ours, and that's also for, yeah, to value time. So you value your instructor's time. If they do something, you say thank you. And there's not, you know, like recognizing this, you know, in terms of demands. I think people are in a state of panic, and so it's like, I need this, I need this, I need this. And yeah, we're all in that situation. Okay, I keep getting muted. I'm not sure what's happening. Just let me know if it happens again. I'm not touching it. So, you know, I guess there's this, like a recognition of the labor. And I mean that for myself. And I mean that also, and as an instructor, as a Black woman in the academy, of the extreme level of stress that it takes to remain balanced within this. One thing I can say is that, you know, the digital, I was thinking about, you know, well, what are some remote advantages? Well, as somebody who struggles sometimes with hearing, I find that Zoom is great because everybody is equidistant from their computer mic. And so I'm finding it easier to hear than I ever have before. And I can also read lips better, you know? So as far as disability, there might be some things. You know, thinking about, I used to get migraines, like all the time I set foot on campus and I have a migraine. My migraines have all but ended since we started Zooming, because I don't have to be physically in the belly of the beast. It's not having a physical effect on my body and my energetic system. So I'm trying to find ways that this is, like, what are the areas of benefit? Folks who have done the Malidoma tree gazing exercise, we did this in multiple places around the world. So we weren't in Lurie Garden competing with music from Millennium Park. Each person was able to engage on their own time and their own pace in their own location. We didn't have the same kind of community physically, but it brought a new dimension. So, I guess as we're thinking about, like, yes, remote is not the same. Is it worth it? I mean, I think it's worth it for the individuals with whom you're studying. It's worth it for the content. What I'm offering now is like recorded lectures, written conversations that students are going to town. It's beautiful in a way that, it's just like another level. Conversation in Zoom, individual, it's like there's so many layers that the digital is now providing, but also that's going above and beyond. Not everybody's doing that. Some people are just like asynchronous, boom. So like recognizing that in order to bring that kind of performative, and I mean performance-based engagement, there are some who are doing more labor than others. And that's a balance that I'm really trying to figure out, because I have normally very high standards, period, for myself. I want folks to have all the stuff, even when it's overwhelming. But I also recognize that some people are doing, usually my 100% is other people's like 200%, it's so like, how do we balance that as in terms of that care? And I don't know if this is going against what is said earlier, but this is a business. It is. Otherwise, you wouldn't be paying money like at this level for it. So, my thing is like, and look, to all the Capricorn risings in the room, like, be about it, Rihanna, bitch better have my money. Like, this is my anthem. For real, and this is something that Theastra said at Black Artists Retreat a few years ago. He said, recognize that whatever that little bit of money that you get, this is especially for underrepresented or BIPOC, BIPOC artists, whatever little money that you get for your museum show or whatever it is that you're doing, know that the museum, the institution is getting millions on top of that, because your Black ass is allowing the check, your queer ass is allowing the check of the boxes. And so your presence there means infinite benefit for the institution. So, my thing is always, like, I instituted 2 years ago, I don't work weekends for the institution. Now, low res, sometimes you have to, and, I hook it up. But that's a rule that actually increased productivity, because I was actually being really firm about boundaries. I also instituted a list of rates for myself, because I'm sick and tired of getting paid peanuts to come, and then something that will end up being used. And, I worked at the MCA years ago, and they did a photo shoot of tours, and they got mileage out of my Black ass in those photos. Like, I was like, oh, there it is again. Every publication up on the wall, recognize, like, that's currency. Yeah. You can opt out, but this is the fact of the matter. Have your rates. People are going to call you difficult. People are going to blacklist you. They may vilify you. They may be like, oh, we don't want to work with her because that's trouble, too much wahala. Está bien. Let the ancestors take care of it on your behalf. Like, you have got to set those rules for yourself. And sometimes we negotiate because we're like, okay, there's other reasons why I want to be part of this, et cetera, okay? Cool. Fine to be with yourself on that, and like, but I just think to recognize that the making, yes, the interchange, yes, but we're working within a business system. And the sooner that we think of our practice in terms of how we put it out in the world, in the same way that the institutions who are inviting us in are thinking about our work as part of their business model, then we can advocate for ourselves, you know? And I have these sort of characters, like I identified her as like big sister mentor. She always wants to step in and be like, how are you doing? I'm gonna take care of you, I wanna kick somebody's ass on your behalf. And then I have the accountant, which is another, you know, sort of energy that's like, do the calculations, you know? And then there's militant big brother protector that's always like, they're fucking with you, you know? And so I think we have to learn to sort of harness each of these sort of energies that we all, I believe, have within us toward supporting what we're doing. The protector is gonna do that because they want you to be safe. But sometimes that protection, that's not necessarily your intuition. Your intuition is eternal. It knows, because it's been here, it's gonna be here, and it's time, what's time? Trust the intuition. You know when some shit is foul. You know. So I guess, you know, these are just the things that I think about when it comes to teaching, engaging, how to make it happen, you know. And now more than ever, you know, I see this as heartbreaking, but also as a portal. You know, it's a moment where we are starting, you know, the people are beginning to make the rules in ways that we've never made the rules. How are you going to use that for your work, for your community and your group, however that may be? What kind of, you know, what skin do you need to kind of like, you know, and I don't know, it's like Instagram is like snakes every moment. And I'm like, is this the ancestors or IG algorithm or working together in concert? But like, how can you mobilize this for your transformation in terms of what you're seeking, what you want your work to do, and what you're demanding, you know? And right now, Black faculty at SAIC have released a letter. You know, I don't want to, I'm nervous to say too much. It's all being recorded. It's going out to the world. But at the same time, I feel very at peace because I know I'm on the right side. I know I'm on the right side of history. You know, I feel at peace with that. So anyway, these are thoughts, many, many thoughts.
I appreciate that so much, all of that, Denenge. And just one little part of it that I can tease out, I guess, that surprised me, that thanks for always having to teach me shit, is that it's safer here in this sort of disembodied way, you know, in terms of like what's permitted and what you feel able to give because of the sort of streamlining of the delivery mechanism. Like there's not a sense that like the institution being native to no one and the sort of like physical or physiological impact entering that space has on one's body. It has it on mine too. Like when I'm teaching at school, I clench my ass. When I'm teaching on Zoom, I got a sty in my eye from staring at the, you know, it's like the tension goes somewhere. It's just like, it's a thing. But I think that having been so much myself, so much in defense of the like inchoate, unspeakable, sensuously intelligent body, I hadn't considered that this actually being a clearer mechanism for other people. I really like that, and in terms of potential.
Yeah. And thinking of it, you know, from a performance perspective, for those who don't know me, I have a degree in performance art, so that's kind of where I'm rooted. And also from like a design sense, I just put this, I don't know if you can see this neon of Saturn. Okay, cool. Ode to Sun Ra. but you know, it also, it's allowing, you know, like Katie has this beautiful backdrop of, you know, your art there, and you know, I always it's opening up new portals, you know, to be able to see people's work, to see people's environments or not. You know, for me, it's branding, see my camel coat in the background, the Osanya leaf, you know,
Branding.
it's like, okay, you know, go to the website, these are for sale. But you know, it's allowing you to shape things in a way, and have a kind of protection that I think is
it's not a utopic.
Hey, drawing room. Sorry, good.
okay. Yeah, so I think I feel more comfortable with that, you know, and for me, I just noticed so much with the migraines. I mean, I've been suffering from migraines since I entered PWI, predominantly white institutions, as an undergrad. That's when they started. And they start up usually when I have to start checking email after I've taken a break, and the headache begins as I start thinking about opening email. So it's, you know, to really understand, like as you said, you know, this kind of physiology and how it's affecting us. I've just become, I think maybe all have become more aware of the intricacies of ourselves, the tiny little minute, you know, whether it's like sound from a neighbor or whatever it might be, but the little details, because you're with yourself, you know, at least for those of us who are living alone, just with yourself constantly in this sort of fishbowl environment. But I think there's something really, my natural state is solitude anyway. So I like quarantine, you know. I get irritated just checking the mail. I'm not really a people person. Because people aren't wearing masks. Oh my God, I can't. Anyway, it's a whole other thing.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I appreciate all of this so much. And that was my intent here, my hope here is that, like, having so much dialogue with students, and having really, I've said this to Kayla, and I believe to Fontaine too, who are here, I really appreciated the expressions of care directed at me personally during this time. Like, oh, we know you're trying, it's hard, scary, everybody, all the stuff. But I think that in general, the address of faculty as a sort of like amorphous, united body, as though that we're all in the same position, is bifurcated, splits apart. Not just in face of like who's precarious labor and who isn't, but the like different effects that institutions have on our sense of personhood or sense of safety in that world. So I wanted to make sure that there was some voice and face to this stuff, just so, not in the sense of being like sharp or accusatory in face of students, but to sort of like, no, this is always happening. You know, like we're always thinking about this. We're always working through this. I'm always thinking about who the flight attendant's smile belongs to, you know, and understanding the extent to which I've been instrumental or allowed myself to be instrumentalized out of care or hope or something. Just like, I do give a shit because I'm desperate, because I want to, like, I have all this stuff that helped me and my teachers helped me and they broke my heart, so I want to break yours. And you know, in this sense of like belonging to one another in that way, or figuring out what we might be to one another. But I think that like it's one thing, but being reminded and underscoring that it is a business, this is transactional. You know, the word neoliberal can be said all day. The word radical can also be said all day. But like we're dealing with numbers, and like dealing the numbers is a heartbreak on its own, especially if you've seen a lot of movies about college, which I certainly did. You know, and like lots of black and white photos of 68, and like had lots of ideas about what the artist might do in relation to society. It's been really interesting to me in general, the institutionalization or the teaching institutions carried by people like yourself, Denenge, and then by me later, you know, but like Butler and Baldwin and Audre Lorde are difficult, desperate characters, you know. It's interesting to have their bodies held in this other kind of authenticating syntax, you know, and like thinking about and then who carries that content in and who delivers it, right? So I think that the reason I'm still talking this long is because I've been concerned with all of the excitable speech about decolonizing the canon. I wanted to sort of be like, all right, people are going to have to do that. Like actual people, actual underpaid people at some cost to themselves, out of like hope and care, are going to do that.
this is my big thing right now. And maybe, you know, there are folks here in the room who were here last year in low res. So, you know, looking at from 2019 to 2020 in this moment, you know, and the extreme changes, you know, that Saturn has also ushered in. Help us all. You know, I'm not sure anymore if decolonizing the canon is even possible. It's something that, you know, we have done for, you know, folks here who have done the final project, this beautiful final papers and writings that are looking at bringing in underrepresented, you know, folks in, you know, who would you pick to be in, you know, to include in the canon who's not, you know, represented or underrepresented, you know, and then also unpacking how do we even define canon, you know, all of these questions. So I think these are wonderful exercises. We're still engaging with that in the context of Parable of the Sower, but it's truncated, you know, short and condensed, so that the paper is actually a written go pack. It can be a list, you know, but that list also includes who would you choose, you know, who's an essential artist or work of art who's underrepresented that you're going to include, you know, in that pack. So thinking about, you know, the go pack is more than like, you know, coals or you know, water purification tablets, but also like who are, you know, what's our archive, you know, what are we taking with us in our pack, you know, for the future. So it's really interesting in this moment. I know everybody and their mothers doing like Octavia Butler Parable podcasts and like the energy right now around this work. I think that something that I struggle with is, you know, the content, especially because I teach very much like Black and diasporic focused content. So sometimes to be doing that as a Black woman, queer identified, femme identified in the, you know, also born in Africa, living in the United States, and then doing that within the PWI. And, you know, oftentimes a lot of the content that I'm introducing with African studies, with Afrofuturity, with Black Arts Movement, you know, looking at the Black Power movement. We just did Poetry of the Revolution yesterday. You know, what time is it? Oh no, everybody's on mute. Okay. I thought it could have worked. But, you know, it just, sometimes I do feel, not only do you feel sometimes imposter just because, you know, you're human and sometimes, you know, being socialized as a woman or femme, that takes it's a deep root to frickin', you know, cut down. Even when you're doing amazing work, you still like, you know, oh no, is it good as, you know, so there's constant questions, which lesson, you know, with therapy. But I think this question of like, can this even be done? Should I even be trying to do this? And sometimes I feel almost as if I'm doing the work, you know, all of these conversations that are coming out now around these works of art, you know, like, don't just talk about this, give it back, you know, give us our shit back. Like, this is, you want to talk about looting? You want to talk about looting? Who the fucking looters are? How about give the shit back to the people, you know, on the continent that you, and many continents that this, so, you know, it's this, we've been talking a lot about language this semester and also about trusting, you know, sometimes the impulse is like, I don't necessarily understand this, it makes me nervous, I'm afraid, so I don't want to trust the author's authority, or I don't want to, you know, like that. Sometimes, you know, I'm wondering, am I doing a disservice to the content? Am I doing a disservice by sharing this within this context? You know, I mean, I struggle with that, you know, but then I also, above all else, I know that I was put on this planet for certain reasons. I know that I wouldn't be here doing this if my ancestors weren't working through me. That's hard to trust sometimes. But I also trust that if I need to step away and say, you know what, this is some fuck shit. This is not serving the content. This is not serving individuals. And pardon my French, y'all, I swear like a sailor. I love to swear. So just, you know, roll with me. And sometimes you need to, You know, you need to call a motherfucker a motherfucker. But I also, you know, one of the things that I wanted to respond to too from Christina's is this idea that teaching can be many things. And this is something I've been working toward with my own therapist for some years now, to move away from being locked into the institution as my only, you know, because she's like, you're a teacher. And I'm like, it causes me so much stress and so many like upset stomachs. And, you know, at 14, 15 years, I still want to throw up because I get so nervous before I teach. Even with all the confidence building, you know, but there's so many factors. And I think there are different models, you know, for thinking about what it means to be a teacher. And I guess that's something that has really come to the fore now, is with the institutions crumbling or being held to account and et cetera, we need to take into our own hands the methodologies. You know, we need to figure out the ways that we want to teach that may not look like anybody else's teaching, that may not look like anything that's gone before. You have this within you. What is, you know, if you're going to be teaching, if you are teaching, what does your teaching look like? So I guess that's something that I'm really thinking a lot about in conjunction with this idea of harnessing your own business sense, you know. Learn to love, not that we love taxes, but like I'm a numbers geek. I love adding up the numbers. I love to, you know, make it sexy. Like, you need to learn to love creating your own visual identity and like embracing that, you know. Ntozake Shange talked about writing. I'm not trying to compare that with doing taxes, but then again, you know, for those who enjoy it. But, you know, she's like, when I write, I put on lipstick, I get dressed up, I dress for myself, you know. I get into the space of my creative process because I'm writing, this moment is everything. This is it. So I don't know. I've been talking a lot, but Dana.
No, it's great. I'm so happy that you're talking. Not for my entertainment, but because like it's good. Say the words out loud, all of them, so people can hear them. I don't know. I just sort of drifted off into smiling because Ntozake Shange was my teacher for 1 week when I was in high school, because we painted a mural based on a poem she wrote about Romare Bearden, and she came and she hung out with us for like a week, and I got to ride in the school van and drive with her to the airport in Chicago, and it was so rad. And she left all this lipstick all over this Diet Pepsi can that I kept for years. And then I saw her later at Grinnell College in Iowa, where I was not going to school but working at a bar, and she gave a reading at this, like, it's in the middle of Iowa, so it's pretty white liberal arts school, pretty expensive. She did not remove her sunglasses, and she smoked a cigarette while she was fucking reading indoors. I was like, this woman is specific. And I think that like that's a thing to say about like teachers and models, I guess, is like, she's clearly the first artist I ever met. She was super generous, like super like lovely and clear and cheerfully embracing her own difficulty in terms of figuring lucidly on the ground, you know, and like having that and allowing that figure to relate differently to the different grounds that held her, and being able to see that in like whatever 5 years later or something, when I saw her again, maybe it was 8 years later. It was just like super moving to me. And I think I'm saying all this out loud just because I'm Ntozake, but also like there's a lot of modeling going on that teachers do, which everybody knows if you've been a student, and you certainly know if you've been a teacher. And that's a tremendous responsibility, which I think is why you get migraines and like I can't move my legs because I'm clenching my ass for hours. It's like these are very real things about responsibility and about care and about like how to share these things that, you're right, sometimes feel jeopardized for having been shared in that context. I totally get it. And I think that thinking about methodologies for teaching too, being a whatever variable degrees of jeopardy and risk, all of us, but like, you know, having it been suggested to me in a faculty meeting at Dear Columbia that I perhaps should call my course Alternative Approaches to Painting. I was just sort of wondering what was so alternative about it. It's the question of the light and who holds it, who holds the instrument and who's instrumentalized are super interesting and super important. So I think I don't know what we're going to do, and I don't know who we is, and I don't really care, but I know that the thing is in crisis, and people are right to identify it as falling heart, and like that there is some hope in there for me in that. Just
Yeah.
like, you're just like, yeah, defund it. It can't hold, doesn't hold right. Yeah.
Speaking,
Yeah.
talking to people, you know, recognizing, I mean, I think one thing that I really struggle with is that I really honor the fact that every single student is paying buku bucks to be here, and not to put it on the money, but just to say time, care, childcare, navigating with the job, navigating time, all of the layers that each individual person has put into being here and being present in that moment. Like for that hour or hour and a half, I do not take that for granted at all. You know, I think about that one person who has a meeting and so they have to miss 30 minutes. Like I think about that constantly. I think about the fact that I don't want to bring the worries. I'm very mindful and worried and careful about what am I saying about the things that we are going through. You know, I want students not to have that burden, because this is your time. This is your time to be a student. I remember what it was like to be a student where I had to work. I never got, you know, I had to take 3 hours of a 6-hour class because of, you know, I've never been in school where I didn't have to work. And that's even with little bits of scholarship, you know, but I'm deeply in debt to the institution where I teach, so much so, and because I don't make enough teaching, I am basically working for free. This is a situation that many of us are in, and many of us from the 90s and 2000s, during a time when it was like very, very little information when it comes to financial aid, support, or anything like that, or grants. And it was like, just sign this dotted line, sign this dotted line. You know, you can say maybe one could be smarter or whatever, but I own my situation. I also recognize the situation that I entered into, and I see it more clearly now. So I'm very aware about the fact that every single minute that I engage is precious and is being paid for now or will be in some form or another. I'm also mindful that every minute that I give, I will pay for. So if I you know, do an extra whatever, I have to balance that with something else in my life. And so recognizing, like, we have to value our time and our energy first. You know, and I'm not in any way an Iyanla Vanzant stan at all, but I just saw something that she said. Also, her name is referencing a Yoruba mother goddess, so I like that. But she said something about, you have your cup, it's the overflow. You fill your cup and other people get the overflow. You know, so really thinking about, you know, the fact that it's more important now than ever to center yourself, what you need, and also recognize, like, this is my truth. Huge debt. I've made a decision to continue teaching that in many ways that was one of my few options. Not everybody's going to be an instant art star. And, you know, and also teaching is part of my family legacy. So I am sitting in a very precarious position that, you know, I'm saying it really nicely, but I spent a lot of time deeply enraged about basically the plantation scene, to quote Torkwase Dyson. As a Black person in that situation is some deep mind fuck. So these are all the things that but I don't want to put that to my students. You know, I want each person to have as much of this blessed learning, grappling, creating, joyous moment as possible before you go back out into the world. You're in the world, but the moments that you're with me, I don't want to be laden, even as you try to navigate that this is the truth, you know? And that sometimes I do, yes, I get upset if I've gone above and beyond, and then the individual doesn't even acknowledge or say thank you or something, you know, then that's when I start to get really pissed. So I you know, it's like we're all trying to figure out how can we harness this moment and look at what you know, plan B, plan C, you know, also keep some plan B on hand because you never know. Plan B, plan C. Hey, the laws are changing moment by moment.
I know.
survival pack, you know. But it's, I mean, then again, quarantine, God only knows. I haven't had a hug since March 6th, so let me just say that about that.
Well, we're just about out of time. I don't know if you want.
That was beautiful. I'm just like I'm giving you some support after that. I didn't want to leave you sitting in March 6th alone. You're here with us now in a very clear and safely bodiless communal way. You're fine. Sorry, Kayla. Sorry.
Nope. That's all. We're out of time. I don't want to take up too much of your generous time, Denenge and Dana, unless you have any last things you want to say. But otherwise, we can close out the meeting.
I would love to know if anybody who's here has like a question or a thing to say, or
Okay. Well, on that note, we have one anonymous question asking about the idea of care and teaching, and I think specifically addressing the needs of students through care in a digital format.
So more like kind of maybe a little more logistics of that. I think, I mean, logistically, it's been a lot. I mean, we all know, for those who teach, COVID has meant exponential. I mean, it's gone like, what you were doing before times 3. Time it's beyond. So I think I've been disheartened by, especially with the undergrads who told me I had reached out, sending resources and that kind of thing when COVID first hit. And they basically said, I'm working as doing this for the school, and I have this job that, taking care of others, that kind of, I'm trying not to reveal too much, but there's like, you're the only one who has asked me how I'm doing. You're the only one who's reached out, and I'm in this position of caring for family, caring for others. So I think that's, I try to be careful and mindful, especially as a Black woman in the academy. I don't want to be performing mammyhood. But I also love my students dearly, present and past. And I think it's about, for me, it's about reaching out, checking in. It's also in how I've tried to kind of shape the tone, because now email is everything. So, I'm trying not to do like super nice about things that are enraging, because I'm allowed to be angry and I'm allowed to have force. And that's always a delicate line as a Black woman. Even if you're speaking softly, somebody will say you yelled. But I think, how do you care for the delicacy that people are going through? And also recognizing that if you're asked to do things, like when I was doing design, I keep track of every 15 minutes. I bill by the 15 minutes. So I do that with my teaching. I keep track of everything that I do. If I spent 30 minutes emailing somebody about something that they're going through, I keep track of that shit, So I know it takes a little extra time in the moment or at the end of the day, but, really keep a document and an accounting of your time. And that's not jaded. That's just simply acknowledging that, oh, wait a minute, I spent 10 hours dealing with student heartbreak in one form or another, or that this is, and that becomes information then, that then goes to the director, or it goes to the, and say, listen, out of this actual number of hours that you said we were going to work, I'm actually working this number of hours, So I think documentation, the archive is really important. I'm not sure in terms of how to foster a culture of care, I'm not sure that that's even possible except in pockets individually, because I don't think institutions are set up for care. I think they're set up as, they're set up for revenue, and that may be in conflict. I mean, we can demand things like the wellness center. We can demand certain, like we must in the faculty letter, Black faculty, that we demanded an end to limits on the amount of times that people can meet with a counselor at the wellness center. So there are things like that I think, certain anti-racism training. So I think it's very much about logistics. Meet the institution where they're at, which is a bottom line. It doesn't necessarily always feel good. But you can't, when they start to talk about, well, we're a family here. No, thank you. No, Could I come stay at your house if I lose my job next month? Anyway, let me not have things recorded that I'll regret later.
No, well, I'm here to just, yes, me too. It doesn't help. Gluing my barnacle to your wrist right now.
Yes, barnacles.
Sorry. Yeah, I just appreciate all this so much, because this is the work. This is the work underneath the work, for sure. It's like locating your own numbers in relation to their numbers, like finding the syntax that's being used and like meeting that syntax. I think that's totally right. Like, as much as I want the whole thing to absolutely fall down, and just like, but that's where the Adrienne Rich line comes from. It's like, if this is where I have to meet you all, then this is where I will find you. And I'm extremely grateful for that, entering into this syntax, hoping to produce meaning in this way in relation to the dominant paradigm, in relation to these like big neoliberal, catastrophically imperial meaning-making machines.
Mm-hmm.
But we went into it. I went into it because I want to change the big one. Like, I can hug my friends in the middle of Tennessee. I don't give a fuck. Like, but it's like, there's a reason to subject one's body and one's person to this kind of strain. And it's weirdly about the future, I think, and not for everybody in the same way, but like, I think about that and I want to point out the like perverse generosity of that, and like that we're not building a farm of faculty vending machines where I'm open 24/7 because the need is 24/7. Even though I want to be, even though I'm like just grateful enough that art school exists, that I'm not like, didn't hurt myself or someone else too much before this system as a language appeared to me,
Yeah. Yeah.
It's hard not to be open. Sorry. Yeah.
Oh, no, please.
No, I'm done.
I guess that's a big question, is why are we here and why are we doing the thing that we're doing? I mean, this is a question I'm asking myself, and this is a question, like, to go back to this idea of what is teaching? How do you accomplish teaching? I mean,
Right.
we've been told that it has to happen in a very specific way. I mean, I think with things like, whether it's Instagram or other kinds of, and especially now that we're all, in various stages of quarantine, Zoom and all these other forms, that all of a sudden people are like, wait, I could do my fashion show virtually. I mean, I know it's not the same. Look, I do ritual performance, I mean, I saw Saul Williams jump on a table and with his sweat and his spit raining down upon me as he's performing. I mean, that was like, blessing from ancestral voice, like that you can't like, there's nothing that can stand in for that, but we can still achieve Ashe energy. We can still do the catalytic life force, it's just, how does that shift? And what does it mean to teach? What does it mean to be engaged in learning with each other, and how do we sustain ourselves? I mean, I know that's the question everybody's asking, but I'm just saying, reiterating, because I've been moving toward those new ways. And then this is kind of, COVID sort of stopped me in a way, but then also is opening the portal of like, wait a minute, think outside. The migraine thing just, blew my mind. I don't know if that's a pun, but it really shifted, like, oh, wait a minute, I don't have to live with migraines? Damn, and so, yeah, I mean, I think we have a hard out at 8:00. Okay. Boundaries. Are we supposed to talk about that too? Say no.
We're just demonstrating them. Yes. Yeah. Say no.
BBHMM.
Say no out of love.
Pay me what you owe me.
It's over? Oh, we thought you were keep if anyone else needs to chime in on that. Yeah. Are there any last words? Kayla, Denenge, anybody? Thanks for coming. We're trying. We know everybody's trying.
Yes. Hope this has been helpful.
Yeah, me too. This is what we're trying with.
Hugs and love, especially to all former students. Miss you all so much.
Thank you so much for being here with us and speaking so from the heart. We all really appreciate it.
Thank you, Kayla. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for inviting
Thank
us.
you, Dana.
Thanks, darling. I'll see you tomorrow. See you on the internet tomorrow. Probably.